I'm Mark Sullivan,
I'm Delaila Lugo.
I'm Jason Kwasnicki.
and we're here to reap the spoils. This is a podcast based around spoiling a video game entirely, but we want to deep dive and talk about that game. So, if you have not played the game that this episode is centered around, please don't listen to this episode unless you really don't care about spoiling it. The game we are talking about today is Jason. Do you wanna do the honors?
Resident Evil 2
Yeah, that's the
remake.
one. Oh yeah, specifically,
I
technically
was
yes.
hoping they would put that in the title when I first logged in the play, and it just wasn't there, and I was upset.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a bummer, right? That was pretty unfortunate given Resident Evil's history. But then again, like 7 didn't do that either. Anyway, we'll get there. The first thing I want to start off with is just what the premise of the show is. Just to really dive into it, since this is the first episode of Reap the Spoils. This show is going to have every episode pick a game and really dive deep into it. Story, gameplay, music, everything. Everything the game has to offer, we have to talk about. So, like I said at the top of the show, if you haven't played that game and you really want to, I suggest skipping this episode or putting it in your back pocket for the time being and playing that game, coming back, listening to us talk at you for an hour or however long the episode goes for. So, that being said, who are we?
We are Dead Cell Media.
Yeah. We have been on a hiatus for a while. This is the first thing we're coming back with in what, almost a year, guys, right?
Just about.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while. We had Analog Report, took a break, did some E3 predictions. I think Jason won. That bastard.
Yeah.
I always win.
That's not true, and I have the scores to prove it.
The only thing that's factual is I always lose.
That might be true, but you do have the ballsiest predictions. But anyway, that's besides the point.
That's why I always win, because I don't know what our
You
swearing
pick-
policy is going to be,
All
but
right, well,
I make pussy predictions.
we'll get more into this come E3 time this year, but that's who we are. That's what the show is. Let's get started. So, Resident Evil 2. That's a video game. It certainly is a
Yeah.
video game.
I would hope it would be.
I would hope so too. I played it, so we all played it.
And it's worth noting that Mark is going to make some comparisons to the OG Resident Evil 2.
I am, because it's important. It's a remake. You know, I feel like there's a lot of value in talking about its stature as a remake. You know, you know what I'm saying.
Especially considering how different it, in terms of its relation to the original, how different it is than the first remake they did, which is pretty much just a one-for-one updated compared to this, which is almost an entirely different game
No, absolutely.
in some respects.
Yeah, for sure. So let's go ahead and dive into the history of the original a little bit, just to get some background. The original Resident Evil 2 that came out on the PlayStation 1 in 1998. Actually, almost day and date. It came out on January 21st, 1998. The remake came out on the 25th, right?
Believe so.
Oh yeah, I have it in my notes. Yes, the 25th. We have notes, guys.
Your notes are not entirely trustworthy though, because you said the 25th of 2018, which would have been
Oh,
a year.
2019.
Yeah.
I apologize. My mind was thinking, oh, wouldn't it be cool if it was the 20th anniversary and not the 21st? Like some sort of weird number.
Mhm.
Come on, Mark.
It's like Resident Evil 2 is old enough to drink. Anyway. Yeah, so it came out 1998, and it was ported like to PC, N64, Dreamcast. It was ported all over the place. Oh, and the GameCube. That was the latest one. So the last time we really saw Resident Evil 2 on anything was 2003. And fun fact, originally the entire game was scrapped.
Right.
What's known as Resident Evil 1.5. That whole game was pretty much scrapped because the supervisor, Yoshiki Okamoto, found the game to be too conclusive, which kind of tied in with what Shinji Mikami wanted to do to begin with. Was he wanted the series to just be over. He wanted to end it.
It's important to note that the original Resident Evil kind of like saved Capcom at a really shitty time for them,
Yeah.
especially as the industry was moving to 3D. And Capcom, obviously, you know them for like Street Fighter, et cetera, 2D games, and they really needed something to move them forward. So they wanted shit out of this bitch.
It's kind of similar to what Resident Evil 2 remake did for Capcom this year, and then like
Yeah.
Devil May Cry 5 right after. Like this is a really
I
strong year for Capcom.
I mean, I'd say the past few years have been really strong. You know,
Well, yeah, when we started with Monster Hunter, that's right.
let's push Street Fighter 5 aside and go ahead and say, you know, yeah, Monster Hunter World for sure, Resident Evil 7 before this Resident Evil. They've been going strong. But yeah, they were going strong back then too. They released the first Resident Evil, and not only did it, you know, save them, it threw the whole survival horror genre into a whirlwind success, spawning, you know, other big survival horror games. You know, Konami put out Silent Hill, I believe, in '99. You know, that era was pretty good for horror franchises. But anyway, 1.5 as 2 was originally called before it got all got scrapped. Did you guys? I kind of forgot about this. Hideki Kamiya directed the original of Platinum Games fame.
Yes.
Which is
well, the reason he would eventually move over, because I don't know if you want to jump into the future post RE2, but he would work on what was originally going to be Resident Evil 4, and that project would be scrapped and would become a game some people might have heard of called Devil May Cry.
Right.
And of course, a lot of those people would then move on, including Kamiya, to form Platinum Games.
Right. And it's also important to note that Resident Evil 2 was almost remade a long time ago, right after Remake 1 was released, but was tabled in favor of focusing on Resident Evil 4, which we all know and love dearly and have played way too many times and have bought way too many times.
I've owned it. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 6 platforms I've owned it on.
And if I ever get myself a Switch, I'm gonna get it on Switch.
Oh my god.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
But anyway, fast forwarding, the official remake of Resident Evil 2 that we know and love today was confirmed and announced in August 2015 with a very I don't know how to describe that announcement video. That is the director with the shirt that said "We do it," and he opened his jacket to show it said "We do it."
Dude, I fucking love the Japanese.
For such a weak announcement, it had so much hype behind it. I feel like no one had any complaints about a TV screen with just Resident Evil 2 remake on it and a man with a jacket and a white t-shirt that said "We do it" on it. But that was announced in August 2015, and we finally got our first look at it at E3 2018 and finally have it in our hands as of about 2 months ago by the time this goes up.
And it was game of the show.
It was,
Yeah.
That's right. It was game of the show. It was wildly well received, even pre-release, and wildly well received post-release, which is kind of why we're doing our first episode of Reap the Spoils on that game today. So, let's get into it, shall we?
Yes.
Yes, we shall.
All right. What'd you guys think?
It is probably going to be my game of the year. I mean, it is thus far my game of the year.
So far, we're not going to spoil Kingdom Hearts 3, but of the 2 games that were coming out this year, like in the first quarter, at least for me, it was definitely between Kingdom Hearts 3 and Resident Evil 2 that how I would prioritize my time. And I kind of almost regret putting Resident Evil 2 off for the few weeks I did to get through Kingdom Hearts 3, because I like it a hell of a lot more than I did.
Like it more than Kingdom
Yes.
Hearts 3, or you're still
No.
okay?
Yes,
yeah.
I
would hope so.
But it takes bits and pieces from every past, like, recent Resident Evil, the pieces that worked best, and melded them into just a smooth, fun, replayable as hell experience.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. That's this game in a nutshell. If you had to describe it in one sentence, it is everything that they've learned that has been successful in this series up to this point.
it's pretty impressive that they can still have the scariest games ever made. Like this, I would say at one point it was like Outlast, and I was kind of moving away from being scared of the Resident Evil series, but Resident Evil 2 is by far the scariest game I've ever played.
You're not scared of punching boulders, Delaila? That's not scary to you?
Hey man, don't make fun. You wasted all that time with a bunch of dudes with keyblades in Disney World, and there's like 3 Ansems and you don't know which one's which. So don't be making fun of my Dragon Ball Z.
I love Resident Evil 5 so much. There's lots of history with me in that game, but it wasn't scary. Resident Evil stopped being scary for so long.
Yes.
And 7 was a good return to form.
Yeah.
Like a really good, we're going to go back to the horror and survival horror. And this solidifies that, So let's start with the story. What did we think of the story? How did we feel about the continuity in the surrounding series? I don't know how long it's been since you guys have played Resident Evil 1, if you played the remake.
Oh, it's been like decades.
Okay.
Yeah.
But even then, like how it fits in, like even with Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 4 was my first Resident Evil. And when I played that, like I didn't know who Leon was. I didn't know who Ada was. I knew there was some history there playing the original Resident Evil 2 recently, and now this remake, I now have that backstory.
And this does a better job, in my opinion, than the original did in kind of fleshing out that antagonistically playful relationship they have, especially in 4 and going on later in the series.
Well, I think a lot of that personally has to do with the performances by the voice actor and voice actress.
Yes,
because as we remember from early PS1 games in general, and especially the first few Resident Evil games, the performances were not great.
Yes, especially the in Resident Evil 1, the real-time cutscenes.
Oh yeah, that real live action opening, everyone looking at the camera like all shocked as a dog jumps at them.
Which granted, I think it's part of the charm of the series overall that it's always been this like kind of B-movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's an evil corporation out to take over the world, and they just happen to have decided to do it through zombie viruses. It's one of the things I love the most about it. At the same time, I really like how they've taken that B-movie feel and almost made it serious.
Yeah, it's sort of
in like 7 and now 2.
It started with like heavy layers of camp, and slowly but surely progressed to embrace that. It almost started like it was taking itself a little too seriously, and eventually stopped doing that, and it did it for the better,
Mm-hmm.
And that's still definitely true of this remake, although it did it a lot more organically, and it comes off a lot better.
One thing that stands out to me is during like Claire's sequence when you're going into the orphanage and you're going to find Sherry. I don't remember that being in the old game. Correct me if I'm wrong,
That's because
Mark.
it's completely new.
Okay, so I felt like that was a nice way to connect the fact that, like, spoilers, Sherry is the, what's this chick's name that works at Umbrella Corps?
Annette.
Right.
That's her daughter, basically, and it's just not like this little girl showed up and like they're figuring this stuff out. Like it was like a journey to get there, and even the like orphanage, like what do you call the people that foster father? I don't even know what they're called, but like he was like creepy in his own right.
Yeah,
and I thought that was a nice way to connect that backstory of Sherry.
In general, the way they added to the tertiary, secondary, whatever you want to call it, characters like is it Marvin? Marvin, yeah. The way they didn't like go, crazy in terms of fleshing them up, but they added a little more. Overall, it just felt more cohesive, like you were saying, the way they added it and connected it. And, it especially after you play through on your second run, and you get to that final ending, and kind of the 3 of them, walking down the road, and like that kind of, it was like a
victory.
I don't even, yeah, but the song that plays in the background, it feels like the end of a movie. Like,
mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It just feels like a more cohesive story.
Yeah,
for sure. To double back to a lot of what you're talking about, the orphanage. Yeah, you play as a segment on Leon's campaign where you play briefly as Ada, and during Claire's, there's a segment where you play briefly as Sherry. And in the original, they were the exact same sequence. Mm-hmm. It was an area that you had to go and collect one of the keys and bring it back, but you guys got separated, and mm-hmm. there was like a really minor, easy puzzle to solve involving some blocks. But that was it. It was the same scenario, or it was the same situation for both characters. They're completely completely different in this one. The Ada scenario is a little similar because it happens the exact same way. Leon gets shot, she takes care of him, and then goes on to try to find Annette. But completely new like scenario in terms of the environment, the end goal, the tools used.
Yeah, they made it like a little puzzle sequence,
Yeah.
which I really liked.
Yeah.
And really leaned into her being a spy with that hacking tool she had. Meanwhile, Sherry's segment, there was nothing about an orphanage in the original. Really,
Yeah.
In the original, there's not really a moment where you go step outside into the city.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like those moments they added and then fleshed out further with the little DLC add-ons. Like the one moment that stood out to me in particular, I don't remember if they added this or if it was in the original. I don't remember it from back in the day, but when you are out in the city and you go through, I think it's like a gun shop, and there's that father
Robert
with
Kendo, yeah.
Yeah, and he basically has got to fucking put down his daughter, basically. Like, that was like an actually impactful moment, and I don't remember the last time we've had that in Resident Evil.
That too was new.
Yeah.
The whole thing with Kendo, even in the main campaign, in the original, you actually go to Kendo's gun shop at the very beginning of your A scenario, I believe. It's like one of the first zones you enter while running through the burning, zombified streets of Raccoon City.
Right.
You take shelter in there. He almost shoots you. He winds up getting mauled by zombies. It's actually the first opportunity you can get the shotgun too.
Oh wow.
Yeah, if you kill all the zombies that are eating him, you can go to his corpse and take his shotgun.
Right.
So win-win.
I know
Nice
some
to
people
know.
that didn't even get the shotgun because they didn't get all the pieces needed to like the key card and whatever. And I was like, that sucks.
Yo, what noobs? Come on.
I was like, don't worry, you can go back. It's fine.
To be fair, if you could finish the game, with as minimal things as possible, hey, that's kind of an achievement in its
Yeah.
own
True.
right.
But it won't be minimal because you'll have either a minigun or a freaking, what is it, a rocket?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
At least by a certain point at the end game.
There's one thing I do want to well, I hate calling it a criticism because it's not really their fault. It was really hard for me to get over the new voice actor for Leon. I think it was a new voice actor. 'Cause
Yeah.
It certainly was not RE4 Leon.
And it wasn't, I believe Matthew Mercer voiced him in 6, and it wasn't Matthew Mercer this time around either.
Yeah.
They keep changing Leon's voice actor.
Mm.
I mean, granted, in terms of tonally in his writing, they definitely changed him for the better of the story compared to like Secret Agent Man.
Yeah, exactly.
That he was in RE4.
Like, it makes sense because this is him, he's much younger. He's, never, it's his first day on the job.
Yeah.
As a police officer. He's a naive kid.
The only thing, it wasn't too much the voice acting that bothered me, but like Claire and Leon are very stupid. Like if you really like listen to them, like Claire, she comes in, she's
They
like,
are.
what's wrong with you? Like talking to the zombies, like they're undead. Like why you keep saying what's wrong with you? This is not a human.
Yeah, the repeated voice lines when something enters the room or you shoot it once in the head. I think that's just more a flaw of the game itself, not like their actual characters.
It's the Resident Evil camp.
Yeah.
Of course,
It's
yeah,
like that
I get it.
It's like that first scene when you first meet a Ganato in RE4, and Leon's like, freeze! And he's got a fucking, like,
I said
pitchfork, and
freeze!
he's about to... Yes, exactly.
That's the other thing. Like, Leon takes his job very seriously, and he's like, no matter what's going on around him in the world, like, it's all about him being a policeman and, like, going by the law. Yeah, like, I was like, you're a professional for sure, absolutely. But Claire, like, she was like, oh, I'm gonna go find my brother. Oh, okay, my brother's on vacation. I guess I'll just hang out in this police station, infested by zombies, whatever. Or maybe she just really wanted Leon. Who knows? I don't know.
I was hoping they would change it so that Chris Redfield would like show up at the end, but didn't get my wish.
Another thing I do want to bring up is the entire opening sequence was new.
Yes.
The going to the gas station. It acted almost as a miniature tutorial just to get used to the bare basics. But it was really, really well done. It really helped set the tone like right off the bat. It was, and I shouldn't say it's completely new. Like Leon and Claire run into each other in like a very, very similar way in the original. It's not quite the same. It's not like a derelict gas station outside of the main town, but it was still it was good to make that playable, and it was good tonally, atmospherically, pretty much everything about it was just really well done.
Was that pervy picture still there in the original?
I don't remember there being a pervy picture
Oh, really?
in the original.
Like, this gun's
I kind of don't
Skun
want
Guy's a
to
perv.
kind of don't want to see that in the original because it would just basically be, 3 polygons on one
Yeah, right.
square. I don't know how well that would translate.
Like
Right.
triangle boobs. Yeah.
Honestly, on a PlayStation 1, you might look at that and just think, "Oh, look at that modern art. Oh, it's so beautiful."
But again, going back to like how they did a good job of making everything more cinematic and connecting it. I did like how they opened it just opened on the trucker, eating his fucking sandwich
Oh,
like a
yeah.
slop and running over the girl. And then that plays in later when he becomes a zombie himself and just drives the fucking truck into the street and blows it up.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
whole and that opening was much more action packed.
Yes.
With and how they get separated from that crash. All around, very strong opening, and overall, I think we can agree the story was pretty well done.
There is one thing I want to ask you though before we move on away from the story. There was a particular note that was in the Star's office when you open up the armory, and it was from Chris Redfield saying like he's on vacation and like he has like a crush on some girl and he won't make it back or something like that. And it was kind of like a subtle way of them saying that he knows what's going on and like he's doing something about it. Did they have that kind of thing in the original, or
I think that was a nod towards Code Veronica.
Okay.
I might be
Yes.
mistaken, but I think that's what they were trying to accomplish with that note.
Right,
Because
right,
Code Veronica does take place in Europe, and it does involve Chris and Claire Redfield. So I think that's what they were trying to hint at. I'm not going to say that I think they're going to remake Code Veronica. I think that's way low on the totem pole of urgency.
It wouldn't get the same attention as 2.
I also think it's just not nearly as necessary as we'll get into it later, but remaking Resident Evil 3 now. But before we move on, like anything else regarding the story?
No, I mean, it wasn't like mind blowing, but they did a good job of humanizing it more, making it more cinematic, making it feel more like, you're playing an action adventure movie. Adding, like, obviously the game is still, we're going to start moving into this. It's still a pretty terrifying game.
Yes.
And the gameplay does a good job of amplifying the intensity. But at the same time, the way they did the story elements and tied everything together, it was like adding a drop of Die Hard to your Resident Evil 2. I guess is the best way I would put it.
Really, and I shouldn't even say that we're going to move on from story elements because the more we delve into, the gameplay and, things we want to talk about mainly in the game, more of that story is going to unravel in our conversation. So really, let's talk about how fucking scary this game was.
my God.
It's funny because I actually just lent the game to a friend of mine, and he was, he started it this week, and he was telling me about his experience, and the first time Mr. X shows up.
I had no idea what the fuck was going on. When he grabs the helicopter and throws it out of the building, I was just like, fuck. I was just like, I had no idea.
And yeah, he told me that, and this exact same thing happened to me. At one point, he went to the lobby, or I could just talk as myself. I went to the lobby, and there's a save point there. There's an item box. You think you're safe, but you're not. You're not safe.
Yeah, I didn't realize he can come out there.
Mm-hmm.
That fucking freaked me out.
Was he able to come out there in the original? I feel like I don't remember that. I don't even remember much of
That's
him.
the thing.
to be honest.
That's the thing. I'm pretty sure from my playthrough that he really only shows up in scripted sections. It's not like what was introduced in Resident Evil 3 where you had a persistent enemy, And to be fair, statute of limitations is up on a game that's 20 years old. Nemesis is a persistent enemy that can just show up whenever he fucking feels like it.
Right.
Mr. X back then, I don't think was the same way because I
No.
played through Claire's B scenario at the very least, and there's only a handful of sections where he popped out and I wasn't expecting it.
Right.
But that's about it. And it was always like some big grand entrance. Like there was a puzzle in a room that I did. Once I completed it, he burst through the wall, like
Yeah.
just flat out burst through the wall. And that happens in this remake, but it happens much more dynamically.
Right. He even pulls like a Kool-Aid Man moment in one of the rooms on the
Yes.
first
Yeah.
floor between like the two flags. I can't remember what room it was.
That's the exact one I'm talking about. He just
Yeah.
bursts through the wall.
He does it in the prison cells as well.
Yeah.
If you go to and when you're in
Oh,
the basement,
yeah.
if you decide you kind of have to go around instead of going through the gauntlet of all the zombies.
Yeah.
But when you do, he just it says fuck it, and comes out the
And
wall.
that goes right into a
Yeah.
cutscene. So it's like, ultimate scripting. This is necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So in the lobby, like, he comes after me, and I went through the West office, where you have to do the puzzle with the locks of their first name or their first initials and everything. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I went to that West hallway, and I'm just running away. I'm just trying to get the fuck away from him. Bust through the door, and the whole time I was playing with headphones,
Oh, yeah.
because especially when it comes to a horror game, I like to really, really immerse myself. Headphones full volume. Burst through that door, and I hear the loudest screech from a licker as soon as I open the door.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I screamed while playing this game.
Same, and jumped like out of my seat.
And I love how they put, like, this is one of the great things about these old school Resident Evil games is the level design, and and gaming in general, when you go back to that day and age, is how these levels were designed so that as you went back and forth, you started to really learn, everything, the layout of everything, where items were, where enemies were.
Yeah.
And I love how for a good chunk of the game, the enemies, it's the same enemies as you go back and forth through these different areas. But I love how about like halfway through, they just change it up and just insert enemies so for instance, what is it, the weapons cache? Normally when you first are going through that area in your initial playthrough, it's just zombies. But as you get later in your playthrough, you'll be just running out that door, you think you killed all the zombies, they put lickers in there later on in the game, and you have no fucking idea.
I ran into that hallway thinking, because I wiped that hallway out, I ran into it
Right.
thinking nothing of it, and there's a licker there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it's a really small thing, but genius just from a game design perspective on that part.
Yeah, and on hardcore mode they put 2 lickers there.
Oh,
So,
God.
yeah.
I'm in the middle of my hardcore playthrough. You don't tell me that, Delilah.
And then when Mr. X is chasing you down that hallway towards the save point right there, like it's crazy.
That save point right under the staircase was like my saving grace. Like I used
The
that.
dark room you're talking about?
Yes,
Yeah.
the dark room.
It's like probably my most common
Exactly.
safe space to go into and get away from the travesties of Mr. X.
Yes.
It's also the worst one with Mr. X because I don't know why it is with that one save room, but I feel like I can never wait him out because he just goes back and forth down that hallway right next to it. So I'm just sitting
Yeah.
there for like 10 minutes listening to his footsteps.
Or he's always
Yeah,
in that like stairwell right above you.
Yes.
Patrolling, waiting for you to come out.
That just reminds me like he obviously looks terrifying just staring at him, but the sound design in this game, like the footsteps, is what really makes him even more terrifying because you can hear him when he's up above you, you
Mhm.
can hear him when he's down the hallway, and you hear the doom, doom, doom just get a lot closer and closer, and then you hear the chains on his, like, I don't even know where they are, but they're somewhere on his body. It's like, it's just like, it's terrifying. And then the music happens, and it's like Jason Voorhees, like horror, run away.
Yeah,
Oh my
that
God.
and that music, I don't know about you guys, that music does an excellent job of making me feel just so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That like sound that
Yeah.
oh God, I feel so gross every time I hear that.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
heart
no.
starts pumping like crazy.
It's so nasty, but it does such a good job at stressing you
Yeah.
right the fuck out.
And I think the best part about that atmosphere and that tone is that unlike the past few Resident Evils, from Resident Evil 4 onward, they were able to maintain it throughout the entirety of the game. So even when you're at the end in the sci-fi laboratory area, like the fucking I forget what they're called, the plant guys with like the fungi
Mhm.
things on them
The
that you gotta shoot off. Ivies, that's what they're called. Like those things freak me out almost as much as the regenerators in 4.
Okay. They don't up until one of them grabs me, and then I like see their faces up close, or even I died to one because I didn't have a sub weapon and it grabbed me, and it
Yeah.
like just ate my
Mhm.
face.
Mhm.
That was pretty nasty.
Yeah.
Also, to double back to the original a little bit, the Ivies in this game compared to like the weird plant monsters we had in the original, like it makes a lot more sense now
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they were just weird walking plants before.
Yeah.
Oh, and I also will add when it comes to the sewers in the remake, I'm so happy they got rid of the giant spiders. As a severe arachnophobe, that even in the original, I got freaked the fuck out when I saw the giant tarantulas just patrolling the sewers. Thank God they got rid of them for this remake.
So
I
that's-
love spiders, man. I would
That's
have felt bad about killing them.
They replaced them instead with those weird
nasty globby
yeah
things.
like what else do you call them? They're just nasty globby things.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know their official name, but
It's
that
in
was
the model viewer,
disgusting.
and once I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, but I don't remember what it is. It's some sort of G virus related name.
Yeah, it's like a
It's got a
bloater zombie,
big eye. That's all you need. It got a giant eye and a big massive
and it gives birth
G virus.
consistently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
through a weird tube that it has for an arm. I don't. Really gross. But
Yeah.
thank God it's not giant spiders. For me, at least. If you're not an arachnophobe like me, maybe you don't. Maybe these gross you out more than a giant spider would.
I think so.
Yeah, I can't deal with spiders.
I actually felt that those things, the big, we'll just call them globs. I actually felt that they were probably the least scary enemies for me, just because I felt like I could avoid them fairly easily.
They were the least scary, just they were gross.
Yeah.
The problem with them is they just took a lot of my really strong ammo to kill, and they took up so much space that I couldn't really sneak past one if I had to. Most of them I had to wind up getting rid of just to get by.
Yeah, especially when you had to go to the chess piece puzzle.
Yeah.
And there's like a very narrow area to go through, and you can't go back. You have to go forward.
And there's
that was the
three
one
of
area
them.
where like the levels were designed so that you couldn't avoid them.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I kind of just ran around them.
Yeah.
And on top of that, survival horror, that's been a fluctuating genre in terms of, is it really horror? Is it really survival? What survival horror means to you might differ person to person, but for the most part, a lot of people, chase that dragon of having limited resources, and this game did a good job of constantly making you use what you have at your disposal and needing to scavenge for gunpowder to make more bullets because you're gonna need them.
Mm-hmm.
And they balance the item placement perfectly.
Yeah, my first playthrough, I ran out of ammo quite a lot. I wasn't even wasting it on Mr. X. I was wasting a lot of it on just getting rid of every enemy, but those zombies are like bullet sponges even to the head.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, from what I remember of the old one, they weren't bullet spongy.
No, pretty much like 5 bullets would kill anything.
Yeah.
It varies from zombie to zombie. It's like an RNG.
And I could kill a licker with 2 shotgun shells in the original.
Right.
Nowadays it's yeah, if you see a licker, fucking get ready.
Right.
Even if you burn those fuckers, they still come after you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you might get lucky, most of the time. Nah.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I did my hardcore playthrough right after my S rank. So I had the unlimited ammo gun. And I was mowing down everything because I wanted to see what it was like to play that game, clearing out every single thing, like every licker, every zombie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's impossible because there was one zombie that her head was exploded off, which is your indication that that zombie's dead. And when I came back around, she was alive. So it's impossible to clear them out. They're always going to respawn somehow, even with the boarded up windows and stuff like that. They'll come back.
Hardcore doesn't play around.
I think it's purposefully designed like that.
Yeah,
it's very possible. What did we think of the puzzles?
They're so old school, but I love them.
Yeah. One might say they are kind of easy, but I don't think that's really the point. I think the point of the puzzles, rather than being hard or easy in and of themselves, is to force you to move around the levels and kind of have to plan how you're going to move around the levels. And I feel like they did a really good job of accomplishing that.
Yeah, because back to your point earlier, you're moving around that map, and while you're doing it, you're learning it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
At this point, that map is it's tattooed on my brain.
Right.
I know it really well from not just from repeated playthroughs, but from how it's structured. You find the statue that needs the 3 medallions, which thank God they made that harder because it used to only be 1.
Right.
You need to find these 3 medallions. Okay, well, you come and you find another statue that's behind a wall, and there's some C4 there. Okay, so I need a detonator. You find the detonator. Oh, I need a batter for the detonator.
Yeah.
And then you're constantly going through the map, finding the next room that you can actually access, and then there might be a key in that one that lets you get into other rooms. The puzzles don't really lie in solving them, because solving them's easy. It's for the most part, it's you get an item, you put it in the slot, and it works.
Yeah, I think the harder part about it is managing your inventory. Especially my first playthrough, I didn't use the storage box, so I had to like really be careful about what I picked up and what I didn't pick up, and that was the harder part, like finding the battery and the other piece and like making sure I had enough room for them, knowing that I also had to pick up the medallion.
Right.
And
Exactly.
There were some puzzles that, were actual puzzles and kind of, were challenging.
I mean, it's like you got a book and there are 3 slots you got to fill. It's like you got the 2 pictures. Oh no, it doesn't have the 3rd picture, and I know there are 3 choices. How am I going to figure it out?
yeah.
But like, again, that's not the point. Like you were just saying, you just wanted to detail. It's about the level design and pushing you through the levels. And in a world where I am quite frankly nauseous with all the fucking open world games that
Mhm.
I don't care. It's not even that I'm tired of them. I don't care about open world games. Like they bore me at this point. This is not only refreshing, it's like restores my faith that there are good game designers out there.
Right.
Yeah, my favorite sort of level design has always been connected linear worlds like Dark Souls, and I felt like this was like that and a lot more connected than what I ever remember in the original Resident Evil 2. I feel like there were a lot more like entrances and exits before, where like, if you went through the STARS office, there was, well, not the STARS office, the East office maybe, there was like another way to exit, whereas before I felt like there were less doors to open or something like
I
that.
believe there were
Yeah.
2 different, like there were like 3 different exits to go to like different areas from that office.
There were a bunch of elevators from the sewers that went to different staircases.
Yeah, I really like that. I love connected worlds.
Yeah, and it's like a giant maze. It's like a giant
Mhm.
maze, and you're just finding your way around to where you need to go. I really really liked like the locks and the safes and stuff, and I wish there was more of them. I don't know what it was. It was like I found a safe, I didn't know the combination, so I'm like, just going through the motions, and eventually I find a note that has some sort of backstory behind why that safe is in its location, or what here's the combination, but we can't just give you the combination. We got to give you a reason to give you the combination. For
Right.
some reason I ate that shit up.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
thought it was really, really rewarding and creative. It's such a dumb little thing, but I liked it. I liked it
Yeah.
so much.
Or you had
It
to
made
like
you
find the
feel-
film and then put it in the
Yes.
dark room to see the picture.
Yeah, and
Which, did you guys get the like extra weapon parts?
oh yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I got them all.
I would not move on from any given area until I saw all blue on all of those
Yeah.
rooms.
Yeah.
On my
Yeah.
Same.
first playthroughs at least. Repeat playthroughs, especially when you're trying to go for S rank, you need to beat it under a certain time frame. You can't get everything
Yeah.
because you're just gonna waste too much time.
But real quick, going back to just what you were saying about the notes, I was the same way, and I'm almost never like that. Like where I go through and read all the fucking like lore notes and stuff that come through in a game like this. And I think it was just because it added a factor of immersion
Mhm.
where you felt like you were actually part of in that world, that it just kind of sucked me in and made it so that, again, like you just said, wouldn't go through without making the room blue.
I think there's really 2 factors to it. You didn't really ever have to spend time looking for them. You'd walk into a room and there'd be a note right there on the table. You
Right.
didn't have to like go digging in the corners or going out of your way to find them. They were
Mhm.
there, presented to you right there in your face. There's that, and there's also the brevity of pretty much every note that you were given. They weren't overly long. They didn't tell you a novel. It was brief and to the point. Because that's what a small scribbled on note would be, it would just be a couple lines to really nail in what happened in that room or at that moment when it was
Same
written.
with the video cassettes that you find.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 3 seconds of security footage that just, it gives you that much more of the story, which is, it's perfect. It was done perfectly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
In addition to the room turning blue when you got all the items, like if you pass an item that you couldn't pick up at that moment because you didn't have enough inventory space, it marked it as an icon on the map. And I thought that was really helpful because
I-
towards the end I went OCD and had to pick up everything that was there.
I love that so much for not necessarily my first one, but any repeats, so that it would mark it on the map if I didn't pick it up, and if it was worth picking up, I would know what's in that room if I needed to go back and get it. If I and just it helped me make a judgment call. I didn't have to like remember, oh, there's some handgun ammo in that room. It was there. It told me
Yeah.
that. And if I didn't need it, I knew right off the bat, like, I don't have to go check and see what's in that room. I already know what's in there, and I don't need it.
And you also knew what you could discard a little red check mark, which was extremely helpful.
Oh yeah, that's like still that's a pretty good mainstay. You used to be told after using it for the last time that you could discard it, which you could make the argument that's a little better quality of life. You use it for the last time and it immediately tells you, hey, you can get rid of this. Do you want to? Rather than having to go in and delete it yourself. But
Right.
it doesn't really matter. It's still a handy feature, and I'm glad they kept it. We talked about a little bit about the weapon parts.
I thought it worked well. You know, I'm always gonna say that I wanted some Mr. Merchant
Yeah.
to pop up in here. It would have been not necessarily the merchant himself, but like if like say on one of the safes, he was like the logo for the safe company that makes the safes. But
A nod would have been cute.
yeah,
For sure.
And I do miss that. But yeah, no, I do believe the weapon system. It was balanced. I liked how it was almost it was a completely different arsenal from each character, which helped diversify the playthroughs.
Yeah. It's about
And
the only thing that diversified the playthroughs besides
yeah,
those like alternative segments with Ada or Sherry.
yeah, exactly. But the weapons felt great. The upgrades I felt did have not as much of an impact as I would have liked, but they did have an impact.
Yeah, no, I agree. Certain weapons more so than others, I'd say. I think fully upgrading Leon's base handgun was super rewarding. Getting that Matilda with the muzzle brake, the stock, the extended mag, that completely transformed that gun into something vastly more useful.
Right.
Other weapons, maybe not so much.
The suppressor, for instance, on Claire's, was it either an Uzi or a submachine gun, but like that's one upgrade that like made a huge difference because obviously like it detracts from. It doesn't draw the attention of like lickers and shit, which is extremely helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
But then like I don't think like any of the upgrades for the shotgun were really did anything of use. Not that I remembered or any.
The shotgun was OP from the beginning. So.
Yeah, exactly.
The most useless one to me was probably the stock for the grenade launcher.
Yeah.
Because, it narrows that big circle that you're using to aim, but really, chances are you're not having that many issues aiming with a grenade launcher.
I don't even remember what the upgrade did for that crazy electric, like giant ass taser gun.
Oh yeah.
That you get.
It did something.
On Claire's run.
It did something with the. It did something with the maximum, charge you could give it or something like that. I don't quite remember either. Which I guess is a testament a bit to kind of its impact on gameplay. It didn't really do much.
No.
Yeah. It's like screw that. Just that minigun that you get at the very, very end.
Contrast to that regulator you get for the flamethrower did wonders because when I first got that flamethrower, I was burning fuel like it was nobody's business.
Right.
So that definitely helped with that. But yeah, this was a fitting upgrade system. It's a little weird that, hey Leon, it's your first day, open your desk. Oh, here you go, you get an extended mag. It's like that's a really weird gift.
It is.
Even worse when you're playing through as Claire. Congrats, Leon, it's your first day. Here you go. It's a speed reloader for a revolver. It must have been really convenient for Claire. Oh, look, I have that. Speaking of revolvers, each character got like their own exclusive additional handgun in their B scenario, and I thought both of them were totally useless.
Yeah.
And the worst part about that was like the only handgun ammo the game would give you in the B scenario. So it's like if you wanted regular handgun ammo for their base handgun, you had to craft it. But it's like that means not saving gunpowder for your shotgun or grenade launcher or your submachine gun versus Leon's whatever the Magnum.
I think it's kind of designed that way though, because like thinking back on it, I played Leon first and then Claire, and thinking back on it, I felt way more powerful as Leon than Claire. But I think it kind of designed in that way where when you start off with Claire's campaign, like all of a sudden all you got is this shitty ass revolver. Granted, towards the end of Claire's campaign I felt way OP because I mean at that point I had learned how to systematically build up my ammunition, how to strategically move through the game without wasting my resources. And by the time I got to the end of Claire's campaign, at the very end of the game, I had shit ton of grenades from my grenade launcher. I had all of these electronic, whatever you want to call them, for the giant ass taser that I wasn't using. I had like 300 rounds for my SMG. It was just madness.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of designed that way, whether for good or ill. you know, that's kind of up to you.
Yeah. Did you guys notice in the West office where it says "Welcome, Leon"? There was like, and not there were two L's, I guess, and one of them was on the desk. I don't know if in the original it was like "Welcome" with two L's, and that was like a mistake.
No, I don't think that I think that was all really added too, because they really leaned into how much the department was like looking forward to Leon coming, and
Right.
in this remake, I mean, like the between the decorations in the office, the little puzzle to get like a welcome gift at his desk, the note where it explains that puzzle and it has scribbled on there saying like, "Be lucky you're not here, rookie."
Yeah.
Even with his orientate or his welcome letter that he had in his possession, like when he started, it just I think this really leaned into that a hell of a lot more than the original ever did or tried to.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is like it was as if it was spelled welcome perfectly, right? But there was an extra L that was on the floor, as if in the old game they spelled welcome wrong by accident with two L's instead of one
I guess
L.
what I'm saying is I don't remember there being any decorations.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's kind of what I'm
Okay.
getting at. I don't remember there
Okay,
being
gotcha.
that I guess that level of detail.
Given the original camera angles, I don't think you would have even seen that in
Right.
the original.
And what I
Yeah.
was gonna say is probably more so like if anything limitations. There's only
Yeah.
so much that they could render or show with like the PS1 hardware, so might not have had that level
Yep.
of detail or even tried to reach that level of detail. Doubling back to the scenarios and Jason, you mentioned that or maybe it was Delaila that mentioned like the only thing to really differentiate the two playthroughs other than Arsenal is that Ada and Sherry segment. Did you guys find it disappointing how similar like playing through Leon A and Claire A or even the B scenarios? Did that feel disappointing to you? Because I sort of expected just a little bit more in terms of
Yeah.
differentiation.
Yeah, it's like once you left that first area, it was almost pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed. I'm gonna play the game a lot of times anyway, so it's fine because I enjoy the game. But if it wasn't for that, I would have not wanted to play A B for both Leon and Claire.
Yeah, I think the saving grace is definitely how different their arsenals are. But aside from that, I agree that they are very much, for all intents and purposes, almost the same. If it wasn't for those added elements, particularly like the orphanage and the changes made to the final area, the what do you call it? The
The
umbrella
lab.
lab.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it wasn't for those and the arsenal, yeah, I wouldn't have wanted to play again. But given how good everything else was, and I really did like the differences between the weapons that the two of them had. So it varied it up enough for me to kind of be willing to overlook it.
Hmm.
What really helped for me is just, I mean, Delilah can definitely talk to this as someone else that's probably played through the game, at least 3 or 4 times at this point.
Hmm.
How fast you could get through a single playthrough. I was pretty much doing a playthrough a night.
Right.
Nice. Yeah.
I'd come home, I'd start one, and I'd be done with it before I went to bed because it would only take once you know the game really well. My first playthrough with Leon took somewhere around 6.5 hours. Claire B took around 5.5, and then I was pumping out those like 3 hour playthroughs. And
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the trophies, it's like doing it in like, I think one of the trophies is for doing it in like under 3 or 2.5 hours or something like that.
It's 3 for scenario A and 2 for scenario B on standard difficulty.
specifically I don't think there's any trophies tied to completion time, but there's one for tied to like
It's footsteps. It's
well, there's the footsteps one, which is
Yeah.
Yeah.
which was fun.
But you can
Well,
get
but
you can
a
get
set-
the S rank one without the footsteps, and the S rank it requires it's just a
Yeah,
time thing.
I was gonna correct myself, and the S rank would account for time, since I think on standard it's 3.5 hours you have to finish. I think hardcore's two and
Scenario
a half.
A.
Yeah, scenario A. Yeah, just how quickly you can get through a single playthrough of that game really help. I've played through it 5 times already, and those were all like
Mhm.
one after another, because I wasn't getting
Yep.
tired of it. Like I
Right.
wasn't really getting sick of playing through the game. I'm still not, but I I recognize, after 5 playthroughs, maybe I should go and do some other things, and I'll
Yeah,
come
I
back to
definitely
this.
want to go back to it though, for sure. I miss it already.
Yeah, especially with the additional content, that they've been coming out with, and God, I got addicted to that one. I mean, we'll get into this in a little bit, but that one mode, the Forgotten Soldier or whatnot,
Oh, fourth
where you
That's
fourth
play as like
survivor.
hard.
the one where you play as. It was the first thing before they released all the additional DLC.
Hunk?
Yeah,
Uh,
you're talking about Hunk.
where you? Yes, I believe so. Yeah,
That
yeah.
shit
I
is
got
hard.
addicted to that for. Yeah, it is hard.
So that's hard. Did you guys find that? What did you find? How did you feel about the difficulty of the actual game? Like, or the game proper, I should say. Was it balanced? And specifically, what I want to talk about, something we haven't really touched on much is the boss fights.
I haven't played hardcore yet, so I can't judge that. I will say that I felt like it struck a really, really good balance, leaning more to the difficult side, which I liked. In terms of the boss fights, leaving aside, the general pervasive Mr. X, which I feel like is more of a gameplay element than necessarily a boss, until obviously the end of, your Leon run.
Right.
I felt like they could have done with maybe adding 1 or 2 bosses. I felt like what they had, I think, was pretty well done. It was pretty well designed. I felt like they maybe should have added 1 or 2 more. I don't know what it would have been, but
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is, how do you do that organically?
yeah,
When
that's
you're
what,
going
yeah.
through we'll ostensibly just call it a mansion. Another thing to add is they did kind of explain why the police department is so non-police department-y.
Yeah,
It used to be a
'cause it's a
museum. It's like,
museum.
okay, that makes sense. Thank you for explaining that. But we can call it a mansion. It basically is a mansion. How do you fit boss fights into something like that? And I think
No,
the way
yeah.
they managed to do with the bosses that they did do it with, they did pretty well.
And I feel like they had so much variety of enemies that like the liquors
Yeah.
and the ivy were like mini bosses in their own right. So that's why it was okay with like fighting the G guy for like what was it, two boss fights?
3,
With him.
I think. Yeah.
3. It was 3, really.
Yeah. There's the first one where you go into the first one when you first meet him. And that's also when you first meet like Sherry and or Ada, depending on who you're playing as. There's that second one with the crane, which that personally is probably my favorite of the fights that you do. Just because I think it's
Yeah.
creative. It wasn't just shoot him until he's dead. It was shoot him until he's staggered and then hit him with a fucking crane. I thought that was well done. And then there's the final confrontation, when he goes all super nasty. I guess technically 4 if you're playing through as Claire, because it's her final boss
Right.
on the lift. And then 5 times if you're doing a B scenario and it's on the train, and he just becomes a giant nasty glob with an eye and bones, just
Yeah.
fucking
So
disgusting.
he like evolves.
I felt like that the one where you're the 3 or 4 one where you're in that pit in the Umbrella Lab. I felt like that one was my favorite and the best done, just because of how difficult it could get,
Yeah.
depending on how you, because it somehow ended up that every time I was going into it, I had no healing items. I was at low health and was low on ammo. It just somehow ended up like that every time. So I basically had to plan how I was going to avoid him, to run around and find where all the ammo that I needed was around that stage.
That one is absolutely the hardest, especially because his reach was so far.
Yes.
Like he can whack you from across the map, and then he like grabs objects and throws it across the room, and it will always hit you if you're not hiding like within the. I feel like it was
The
like
corners,
an X formation, yeah, and you had to hide like behind a wall, sort of. I mean, he looked the coolest too. Like I think.
Yeah, he had that weird skinless face. It was
Yeah.
gross.
Although his human face kind of looked like that guy talking about Resident Evil 5 again. That guy on the boat
Oh,
that shoots
did
himself up and then becomes this
I don't even
monster.
remember what his.
What was
I don't
his
even
name?
remember what his name was. Man,
But he's like laughing as he turns into a fucking
Yeah,
like
he
sea
had like
monster
a
that you
weird.
gotta shoot up with a
He had like a
minigun.
weird skeevy voice. I know who you're talking about. I just can't remember what his name was.
The face though, like just looked exactly the same as if they pulled the character
The
model.
same
Yeah, so I was kind of
had the same
laughing.
bad haircut.
Yes,
Everything.
exactly.
And I you wanted to talk about some of the extras, the like fourth survivor, Jason. So let's talk about some of the extra content.
Well, I haven't even gotten into the DLC yet,
Neither have I. And
which I want to.
I
Where
kind of
apparently,
don't feel the need to go into the DLC because A, they're what if scenarios, and
right?
B, they're not being part of the A and B. They're not really part of like the main
Mhm.
game proper. It's really what I want to get to today. So like that
Yeah,
aside, I still feel there's plenty to talk about. Like and like even just like costumes, the model viewer, those extra challenges. Delilah and I could, we could talk your ears off for hours about trophies.
Yeah, and just
yeah.
to make a point, the DLC was pretty much just arcadey. Like it had like cool music in the background, and you were timed, and
You basically have to fight your way from the sewer all the way back up through basically through the mansion all the way up through the third floor, and it's not on a timer.
Oh,
It's
are you talking about
basically
Fourth Survivor?
I don't remember.
Well, Fourth
Yeah,
Survivor is part of the
the
game.
fourth survivor is similar to the DLC in that way that you're running through like
Oh,
hordes
okay.
of zombies, and like you have to like rush through. You can't just like shoot everyone. Like there's like hordes of zombies, lickers. Like Mr. X even comes at one
Yeah,
point, so it's
and you
very
have
challenging.
limited ammo.
But very
It,
limited ammo.
it starts you off with everything that you're going to get for the whole thing, and that I found super addictive, especially because like I kind of wish they had something like a mercenaries mode because I fucking love the
Ugh.
mercenaries, but this is somewhat close.
Yeah.
I'm like totally in the minority. I know this, but I've never liked mercenaries.
Dude, go to hell.
I've never found mercenaries fun, and I'm pretty cool with it not being in this game. But yeah, and then Fourth Survivor, a lot of people were really happy that made its return, and also I don't know if you guys have played Tofu Survivor.
I didn't get to
Mm-mm.
yet.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty much the same thing. It's just you're playing as a block of tofu, and you have
Right.
this time they added multiple different characters. As weird as that is to say about blocks of tofu that all have
Yeah.
different loadouts that you can start out with, which is really cool. It's like paying homage to what was there originally, and still adding new things for you to enjoy. I spent way too much time in the model viewer. Personally, I think that those extra challenges they give you, a lot of them are tied to trophies, but a lot of them are also just extra challenges. Like there's one for dismembering a zombie, like just shoot
Yeah.
off its arms and legs and it's still alive. Just have it as a torso, and that unlocks
Yeah,
something
or doing
for you.
the puzzles within a certain amount of time and stuff like that. Which
I
for that science lab puzzle with the stupid tubes, like that
Yeah,
shit was really hard.
yeah. And like I just love that you unlock a model that you can just go into the model viewer and zoom in. It even has animations you can play, and that's true of like even the characters, the player characters, and you get different models of those. I thought that was super. Just it's just a nice little feature. I
Yeah,
spent way too much time in it.
definitely.
Here's a question I want to ask about the DLC, not about the DLC that we got, but about what might be the future of this game. Do you think we're still going to get more DLC, either free or paid? Personally, I'd like to see. We all know Ada survives. I'd like to see like a downloadable thing where you play as her escaping that lab. How do you guys feel? Do you think that could work?
I do.
They did. I mean, that's what they did. If I remember correctly, for 4, it came as part, if I remember correctly, of the PS2 edition. There was that Ada. Obviously, back then it wasn't DLC, but it was like an add-on mission.
It was like an exclusive thing for the PlayStation release. That was Separate Ways.
Yes.
Which was like a mini campaign as Ada. And I just want like a brief something where you play as her again and escape the lab. I think that would be cool.
Yeah.
it would really amplify how well this game is doing in expanding its lore and showing more of the scenario than we originally got.
Absolutely. Or even going into the story of the father and the child and like how they got to where they are.
Mm-hmm.
I forget his name. You know his name.
Robert
What was it?
Kendo.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know if they would do that just because they also did they did a one of the Ghost Survivor stories was about him, right?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's already there, and it's there for free. That's the thing, and the reason that I unfortunately don't think we'll see much more in terms of like gameplay chunks like that, unless of course they decide to start charging for the DLC. I don't think they'll do much more for free.
I mean, and that's very possible. I see it mostly as it's kind of just like a pipe dream, but I think it would really show their goodwill, I guess, of how much they're willing to even support.
I would love for it to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. One of the I have a few last big questions that I want to throw out there, assuming we're done talking about the game, or for the most part at least. You, Delaila, you played the original a long time ago. Jason, you played a little bit, I think.
R2, yeah.
Do we feel that that this kind of supersedes that? Do you really see any reason to go back to the original, or does this kind of just take over its place?
I feel like it would be hard to go back to the original at this point. I don't think it would be successful if they tried. Maybe if they did like a little like movie mode or something.
What I really mean is you personally going back, or someone that wants to get into the series for the first time. Do you think that they should just play this remake, or is there value in also playing the original game? Is there value in any of us playing the original game anymore?
No.
Or does this kind of take it over?
It takes it over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I agree in the sense that I feel about this game the same way I feel about the Lord of the Rings extended edition versus the originals. Like, you can't go back and watch the originals once you've watched the extended editions. But that being said, I do think it has value in the sense that like going back and playing the original OG Metal Gear Solid, like a lot of people would say, outdated gameplay, and it is frustrating at times to play, but it is worth it to kind of get a sense of, especially with Resident Evil, when people talk about how the series has been evolving, kind of see what people mean when they talk about classic survival horror, because there are still differences between this and what we might consider classic survival horror, fixed camera angles and the like. Although you could really just play Resident Evil 1 Remake if you want to talk about fixed camera angles.
Yeah. And to add on to that, I think the fact that this is so drastically different from the original, it almost adds to the value of the original. Because you're getting a completely different experience. It's the same basic story, same basic characters and everything, but just how different the two games are, I still feel it's worth it for anybody, new or old, to the series, to go back and play that original game. I would say much more so than the first Resident Evil and the first remake. I feel those games are so similar, and the remake of the first one does so much better that it doesn't make it worth going back to that original first game, because just of how much that remake doesn't necessarily, it just improves on everything, not necessarily changing all that much.
I feel like the only thing that's really worth going back to in the first one is the fixed camera angles, because the way you tackle the zombies are so drastically different. But otherwise, in terms of storytelling and graphics, obviously I feel like Resident Evil 2 Remake does everything better. But that old school like camera angle, I think is something that can't be repeated nowadays.
Right.
Although I prefer the over the shoulder, but it's a very different dynamic.
The last question I want to ask you guys: what's next? Is Resident
Evil 3?
Right. Well, okay, but let's evaluate the trend here. Okay, we got Resident Evil 2 Remake, top of 2019. We had Resident Evil 7, top of 2017. So in 2 years,
Resident Evil 8 maybe?
Yeah, I wonder.
And before that, Resident Evil 1 Remake.
Huh?
I mean, that wasn't the year before, but It was a few years before
It
on the
was well,
PS4.
it was many years ago. It it was many years ago that it was
Wasn't there?
remade.
Hold on. Wasn't there were? I thought there were two remakes of them.
There was a it was a remaster of the it was a remaster of that remake.
Okay.
It was a remake master or a remaster make.
Then I'm just a fucking idiot because when that remaster came out on the PS4, I thought it was a remake of the remaster, so I completely flipped it
Is a remaster of the remake.
because I never played that original remake.
That's also
Okay,
worth.
so that makes more sense.
That's 100% worth playing, but that's for another episode. So, in 2 years, yeah, do we think we're gonna get the next Resident Evil or the next remake of a Resident Evil game?
I just don't know where they would go with 8 at this point. Like, I felt like the Baker story was so self-contained, and maybe it's because I'm not remembering how it ended, but I don't see how much further
And
they can
I
go.
don't want to I don't want
I
to
know they
delve into how
will, but
I don't want to delve into how that one
So
ended just because we're spoiling 2,
the
not 7. But
DLC,
the DLC explains
the
a lot
DLC,
and goes in directions.
yeah,
okay, I didn't play the
it
DLC.
basically without like going into too many details, the baker's son, I forget his name, the one that like plays all the Joker-esque mind games
Yeah,
with you.
Josh or Jake or something.
He was basically working for, I don't think it's technically Umbrella. I think it's a big company
A big
that's
corporation.
basically Umbrella.
It could be Umbrella.
Yeah.
It might not be Umbrella.
There is a link there.
They found ways to tie and continue it, but they could also, as far as where to go with the big picture, 7 had almost no ties to the big picture. You had a totally new protagonist. You had a totally new, set of characters. They could very well do that with 8. Find loose ways to tie it in, but have even more a new threat, a new set of characters. They could keep doing that. And personally, I think that's what we're gonna get next. As much as I want to see a remake of 3, and I do think we're going to get that eventually. I think Capcom's going to start a pattern here, and they're going to keep the ball rolling. This enormous success ball that they've got on the track. They're gonna keep that going and just keep going with this new chapter in the series' history.
But you think Resident Evil 8 would be first?
Yeah, I think that's the next thing we get. If not just some, I don't know. Hopefully we don't get another Umbrella Corps, but
Yeah, sorry, Jason.
No. I agree with Mark in that I think they're gonna move forward with the mainline series and create another installment. I think that's kind of a given because remaking 3 is going to be a much more expansive project than remaking 1 or 2 for the simple reason that most of that game takes place not indoors in like tight corridors, but outside on city streets.
It's like everything we
At least
didn't
if I
explore
remember
in
correctly.
Resident Evil 2 is what we explore in
Yeah.
Resident Evil 3, which is the city itself.
Yeah, and there's in the original game, they started introducing in that game more actiony elements.
Yeah.
Like if I remember correctly, Nemesis could like shoot fucking wrist missiles at you, and there was like you had like a dodge button and other sort of stuff like that. So they would kind of have to, I think, redesign certain gameplay elements. I think a more interesting question is, with Resident Evil 8, will they stick with the first person perspective or use this new over the shoulder like perfected hybrid that they kind of have achieved with remake 2?
That's a great question.
I think still first person. I think they're gonna go back and forth between third person for remake and first person for new chapters to the series. I felt that making 7 go first person was a bold move, but a one that paid off.
And it also made a lot more sense for VR. So if they plan to stick with the VR thing, they'll definitely have to stick with the first person, I think.
Oof. And you know what? Since I got my PSVR, I haven't played 7 yet, and I can't wait to. But I'm also I need to give it a little bit of time so I forget some of the game, so that when I go in, there's at least a little bit of surprise for me there. But
Mhm.
yeah, if they did do another VR shtick, first person would be the way to keep it.
I don't know, man. It's funny. It's not. I really did love Resident Evil 7. The Yeah, that was 2018. I mean, if it wasn't for
2017.
I'm 27. I'm sorry. It was the end of 2017, right?
The beginning.
Beginning.
It came out in
Was it the
January.
beginning? Oh my God, the years are fucking running together.
That's
Do you
true.
do you need a
I'm
calendar,
getting
Jason?
old, man. I'm almost 30, man. Get out of here. I'm getting old. Then yeah, if it was 2017, that was my favorite game of that year. And I did really love the first person perspective. I don't really know which one I would favor. Like, I wouldn't mind either.
Yeah,
I think they're
me either.
they're gonna
Um,
go back and forth, because I think it was successful. I think it really paid off, and they can do both. They can do both really well. So why not give us both?
it works for new characters that like aren't part of the canon. You can't do like a first person game where you play as Leon
Right.
Kennedy or Claire Redfield or
That
Chris
would
Redfield
definitely
or
that would definitely be weird.
Yeah, I
but
agree.
like the fact that we were playing as a new character that we had no idea who he was in 7, it basically meant that like we were the protagonist in a way.
Yeah, a complete newcomer, and really just an everyman. So
Quick question:
what's up,
Did you find it more terrifying to be chased by Mr. X or Jack Baker?
Mr. X, hands down.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
not
agreed.
no question there. Like
No competition.
no competition.
Jack Baker was almost more like off-putting. It was
Yeah,
almost like a weird combination of watching The Joker in The Dark Knight and like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It
right.
was it was a different kind of tension.
And you could take him down if you had enough ammo to spare. I'd never really feel that way with Mr. X.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like he walks into a room, I say, "Oh fuck," and I book it.
yeah, totally.
Jack walks into a room, I'm like, "All right, old man, do I have to teach you this lesson again?" I'm
Yeah.
gonna.
Yeah, exactly. Although you can just shoot Mr. One of the things that once you realize you can just shoot Mr. X in the head once and then run around him, and you can outrun him, like you're always faster than him.
Oh yeah.
I mean, which is good from a gameplay perspective because it is really tense when you're running from him, even though you know that he can't catch up to you.
Until you play
Um,
on hardcore and he
Yeah.
runs.
I haven't played on hardcore yet, so
Dude, he skips like
I'll
5 stairs.
all
It's
right.
insane.
I'm not looking forward to that.
And now neither am I.
Yeah,
So I think it's safe to say we all liked the game.
Love it.
yeah. Like Delilah said, it's probably gonna end up being my game of the year. I don't see anything else so far coming out
I think it's
to challenge it.
I think it's there for me too. At least thus far, it's definitely there. We'll see how the year plays out. We still have plenty more months to go in 2019. We still have an E3 to roll around and do predictions for,
Yes.
which I'll be nagging you guys about when the time comes. But as it stands now, I think this is the end of our first episode of Reap the Spoils. Real quick before we sign off, we can go around the proverbial room and say, what are we playing right now at this current moment in time?
I just created my character for Division 2
Okay.
and then started recording with you guys.
Oh,
So I can't really
man.
say anything about that. But right before that, I was playing Devil May Cry 5, and that game is surprisingly amazing.
That's what
Bayonetta
everybody's been
3,
saying. Yeah.
it's so good. Like, I feel so damn edgy, and that RE engine is just beautiful. Like, it's Bayonetta 3 is gonna have a lot to do to kind of match that. I feel like now its standard's gonna be a lot higher we're gonna expect a lot more from it because it kept the hack and slashy kind of arcadey style versus like God of War, which kind of moved away from it a little bit and was a little more serious. This game like sticks with that, but it's very good. And right before that, I platinumed Anthem,
Oh,
which is not. Yeah,
You fucking platinumed Anthem already.
yeah.
God damn it.
That's what happens when Delilah's not in school.
It's true.
Which I liked, contrary to popular belief. I enjoyed that game. It had issues, obviously, but I had a lot of fun.
well, good.
Yeah, I liked the demo of Anthem. I did play the demo. I had a lot of technical issues with the demo, and I decided I was just gonna wait until like they fix shit before I dove in, if I dove in at all.
Yeah, to me, that's what that game comes off as. It comes off as a wait and see kind of product.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Jason, what have you been rocking? Anything?
Oh, this is gonna sound so like out of touch, but like 6 months ago, for some reason, I decided to jump back into Overwatch to see
Wow.
what was still there.
Wow.
And like ever since then, I got like really fucking into competitive Overwatch. I mean,
Dude.
it's like and trying to get my rank up. It's like if I haven't been playing either. Well, actually, I think this was after I finished God of War, and then I got Red Dead, but I only played Red Dead for like 2 days. I'm such a contrarian. I fucking hated Red Dead. Part of it was because of, like I was talking about before, I'm just nauseous with open world games. I don't understand the appeal of Red Dead. To me, I feel like the actual level design and like shooting mechanics, I feel like are wildly outdated. I feel like they should have spent less time designing how to like clean your horse and put it into like gunfight design. But that's just me.
It's
I know
not a
other
shooter,
people
but
like it.
that's a whole big can of worms you could open
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
We could
For
be here
sure.
for another 2 hours talking about
But
that.
that's not just Red Dead. That's Rockstar Games in general. I feel like
Yeah,
that's been
absolutely.
a pattern with them. But anyway, yeah, I if I wasn't playing RE2, I was playing Overwatch competitive, and I don't know, it was just really fun because I hadn't played for so long. There were like 6 new characters I didn't even know were like added, which was pretty fun. Although I've also like been getting into, there's a lot of bullshit going around the community just in terms of balance issues and problems with Blizzard and all this other shit, and frustrations with the matchmaking and all this other stuff. But yeah, I don't know how I got sucked in so hard to Overwatch again.
Is Mercy still Bay?
Oh, Mercy's always
What do you
Bay.
mean? Is she
Well,
my main?
that was your Bay main. I
I'm
remember.
still I'm still a support main. Every once in a while I'll play Mercy. Mercy has been mad nerfed. So like her ultimate doesn't res everybody anymore.
Yeah,
Her ultimate is just like you get to infinitely fly around.
yeah,
Instead, resing is a regenerable ability.
yeah.
Um,
I just
my,
remember after the Omnic event, you were really sprung over her. That's all I'm saying. There's an episode on it if you guys want to go back and
yes,
see.
there is. No, actually, my favorite character is Anna, which
Okay.
is Farah's mom. She's basically she's a healer as well, but she heals with a sniper rifle,
Hmm.
and she has a tranquilizer gun, and she's like a 60-year-old woman kicking ass. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's cool. That's
Um,
interesting.
I'm actually hoping to maybe this weekend actually pick up Devil May Cry 5 because I've been hearing lots of good things, and now that Delilah has confirmed,
Yeah, I kind of regret not jumping in with the deluxe edition because now it's sold out everywhere. And can't get that weird spaghetti fork or the Mega
What?
Buster. The deluxe edition has like some different interesting like arm attachments for Nero, and one of them is like a pasta fork with pasta on it. Yeah, it's
Oh,
it's
boy.
it's cheeky.
Yo, Capcom is on a roll, man.
They are.
Yes.
They really are. Yeah, besides Resident Evil 2, I before that I played and platinumed Kingdom Hearts 3. I've also, Jason, Jason.
Did you let it go? Did you let it go?
Oh my god, I couldn't
Jason.
with that moment.
I hate you. No, Jason, guess what else I've been playing recently?
I'm guessing Final Fantasy 14.
No, I've been playing Final Fantasy 9.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
Finally
How you liking it?
finally trying to get through it. I would like to tell you how I'm liking it, but I feel like that would be better spent for a whole other episode on a whole other show that we should start discussing
Oh
very
yeah,
soon.
Yes. Out of curiosity, how'd you do in the sword fight
Oh, I got
in
100
the very
nobles.
beginning?
I mean,
Awesome.
I did it
Okay.
repeatedly until I got 100 nobles, but it only took me like maybe 2 or 3 tries.
You can't be a real man unless you get 100 nobles.
Um,
Every Final Fantasy fan knows that.
Uh-huh. But besides that, the other big thing that I've been playing a lot of is with the PSVR. Roommate talked me into getting Beat Saber,
Oh, cool.
and that has been my like every other day workout routine
Nice.
Awesome.
because that is an exhausting but crazy fun game to play, and frankly worth jumping in on VR if you haven't yet. But yeah, with that all being said, what do we have in terms of social groups, guys? We haven't done this in a long time, so we have a Facebook group, I believe, Dead Cell
Yes,
Media.
which
It'll
I will
be
post on. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
post on that soon to give people a heads up that we have stuff coming.
that's a good idea.
We also
Yeah.
have a Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah, we have.
I'm
we
just
have a-
gonna like presage this and let you all know. I do have a Twitter handle. I'm never gonna answer anybody on that Twitter handle, and these guys will probably be on the Facebook because I am terrible at social media. So
Jason just wants to be a curmudgeon and crawl into a hole where he'll play
dude,
Overwatch.
when Skynet comes, dude, I don't want them to have my shit on Twitter.
Okay.
Skynet will come.
Skynet will be able to find my shit on Twitter at Nibelheimian, be able to find Delilah's shit on Twitter at Assassina_san.
Yes.
Underscore
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, and Jason, I'm gonna out you. You're at Solid Quaz.
Yeah.
But we also have the at Dead Cell Media Twitter account, which we'll get that a little more active, I guess, as well as the Facebook group on Facebook. It should just be Dead Cell Media. It
We're
should be
making a
pretty easy to
comeback,
find.
guys.
That's
Yeah,
right.
we're gonna whip
And
ourselves
it's worth
back into shape.
noting that this
Yo,
show will be
DCM
once a
for
month,
life.
right?
Yes. Sorry. Yes. This will be
Okay.
once a month. It's a little hard to take like an hour and a half every week to talk deeply about one single game that we may or may not have played at this moment in time. So
Yeah.
after this
all
publishes,
work.
or after this, we'll start thinking of another game. Probably announce that on the social channels, just so everyone's ready and prepared. And yeah. Thank you for joining us and reaping the spoils. This is Mark Sullivan.
This
Delaila
is-
Lugo. Sorry.
This is there we go.
It's all right. This is Jason Kwasnicki.
And
And we are Dead Cell Media.
yeah, that's okay. All right. Yeah. Okay.
DCM for life.
All right.